welcome to the Baal Radio. I'm your host Paul, and we have Scott here with us.
How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing pretty awesome. First things first, wishing all those fathers out there, especially my own, a very wonderful Father's Day. Another day to celebrate the fact that my dad is older than me. And I hope you guys all get your dad something nice or do something nice for him. And so welcome to our next installment of the Baal Radio Show. Today we're going to be talking about logical fallacies.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who were listening last week, we had a nice day in Muslim.
Yep.
Here, his name was
Nazir.
Nazir. I was going to remember this. Nazir. And very interesting show. What did you think, Scott?
Well, it's important, I think, that people understand what they are.
It's important to self-identify.
Well, it's important to understand who you're talking to.
Yeah.
If you're going to have opinion about anything, you should probably learn a little bit about it first.
Exactly. Because if you hear something like, well, that's wrong, you have to know why. Otherwise, you're just being a bastard, really. Well,
it's very true that very few people that I know actually know that there's more than one type of Muslim.
Which ones did he say? There was Ahmadiyya, there was...
Well, see, this is why we've got to get him back on, because all week it's been driving me nuts. He told us about 3 different denominations of Islam, but he originally said there was 4, so I don't know who the 4th one is that we're missing there.
Exactly. Well, we could always Google it, right?
But, I mean, of course, this week, there's some information you could use from last week when you're looking at the crap that's going on in Iraq again, and you understand that it's, it's a Sunni uprising coming in, attacking.
Wait, there's another thing going on in Iraq now?
Yeah. This week, there's a big Sunni uprising in the north coming down, pushed the Kurds. They've actually taken 2 large cities in the north, kind of pushing against the Kurds in the north that have their kind of own area. Mm-hmm. The Iraqi army just, their impression of the Italian army, and everybody just dropped their rifles and ran away.
My God.
And so the Sunnis went in and picked up all the nice, bright, shiny new equipment that's never been fired. And they've got that now, and they had been marching on to Baghdad, I think was that they're implying that was the goal.
Oh my.
Which is a little different once they're headed to Baghdad. A little bit more people took notice.
Yeah.
To the point of even their historic enemy, Iran, has said this week that they will as well support them in the defense of Baghdad. So
wow,
which is, I mean, they have their own interests there, and there's large Shia and Sunni groups. There's a large international presence in Baghdad. So, and somebody had told me, or I think I read somewhere, it's the most expensive U.S. embassy on the planet too. So I think
they'll probably partake.
Well. It's very difficult because they just left there a couple of years ago, and to be called back so fast with everything else that's going on.
Oh, now they're
in the world.
invited this time.
Well, no, not necessarily. Actually, the problem is you have a very weak kind of a puppet government in Iraq to begin with, and that I don't know how strong the authority of a mayor is. The mayor of Baghdad has said, well, no, we don't mind support, just we don't want any boots on the ground, which is fine because right now Obama is saying we'll support them and we're looking at a lot of different options, but we're not planning on sending troops to the ground.
That's good. See, look, now America's being responsible. Good for them. Or acting responsible.
Well, the U.S. will and has always acted in their best interest like any other country. Iran isn't suddenly being magnanimous about offering to help either. They will help as far as their own best interests go, right?
So, getting back on topic, what did he cover? He covered why the Ahmadiyyans were largely frowned upon by the Islamic community.
Well, what to summarize that, it's as if you said, okay, I'm a Christian, but 100 years ago, there is actually a second Messiah that came.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're following all the Bible except we have an episode 3 now. Like we have Christianity 2.0.
Yeah.
Which now, with so many different denominations of Christianity, that's happened, you know, a few thousand times where there's been a lot added.
Yeah.
And reinterpreted. Now the difference is the Ahmadi don't seem, as far as what I've been reading on my own, they're not really changing parts of the Quran to suit they're just kind of adding. They've certainly added to it with a new prophet, but they don't really change, and that's a big thing to a Muslim, is that unlike the Bible, where you can show that there are thousands of changes to the actual text, there's actually been more edits to the Bible than there are words in the Bible.
Yeah.
That's how heavily, I mean, it's got to be the most heavily edited piece of literature on the planet by a mile.
Yeah.
So that's a source of pride for a Muslim, is that this Quran hasn't changed. Now, originally, and even today, a good majority of Muslims will say, and it doesn't even count if you read the Quran in another language other than Arabic.
Yeah.
Which is kind of strange, considering that of all natural-born speaking people who speak Arabic, I think is about 4% of the population of Earth. So if you were a god and wanted to give a really important message, I don't know if you would choose Arabic. Something a little more familiar, I would suggest either English or Mandarin. Would probably be
Cantonese is a bit more popular than Mandarin, isn't it?
I'm not sure which of the two Chinese speaking.
Because apparently, as far as I know, don't quote me on it, but
I would probably give two versions. Then.
Yeah, there you go. There we go.
One for the countryside and one for the metropolitan group. But so he did cover that, and certainly it wasn't propaganda or anything. That group has been heavily prosecuted.
Yeah. Targeted for
persecuted in places like, well, Pakistan is the one that's at the top of the list. And like you said, can you imagine not being, for it to be against the law for you to go to your church?
Yeah, that'd be kind of shameful.
Or to perform, to go to church on Easter or something. Well, you got to wonder about the mentality of the government that is doing that. The best way to stamp out this other group that we don't like is to
allow them not to do what they
make
want.
Place legal limits on them, outlaw them basically, and
this is why we have church and state separated here.
Well, see, that's the other thing is, I've spent the week actually going through and talking to a lot of other Muslims other than Nazir, and doing some of my own reading, because looking at it from the viewpoint of us who may be fearful or at least nervous about a lot of Muslims coming into Canada, what are the things that we're afraid of? Well, the number one thing is, for me and for what I can tell, is are you going to come into this country and start trying to change our laws to suit your own
beliefs,
the culture that you left?
Exactly.
So which a lot of Muslims, and they certainly have trouble with this in Britain. They're trying to get Sharia law now. Everything I've read by the Ahmadis points to the fact that Sharia is not a good system of government.
And why is that?
Because it's impossible to apply it evenly. It's impossible under a Sharia law system. That's redundancy, by the way. Sharia law. Sharia means law. So, but under Sharia, it would be impossible for all people to have the same rights. It's just not happening. It's not written that way. Believers and non-believers, or there's a distinction between Muslims and non-Muslims, but under the non-Muslims, people who believe other faiths and people that don't believe anything. Which is strange, because as I have been reading the Quran, I keep getting the impression that Muhammad, or whoever wrote on his behalf, wasn't aware of atheists.
Exactly.
When he speaks of non-believers, kafirs,
He
You
implies
really have to read it in context to look at it, because what starts off by sounding like he's talking about unbelievers is he's referring
talking about people who don't believe in
people that don't believe in Allah, which means it's almost an assumption is made that they're
believe in something else.
well, they're either Jews or
Exactly.
Christians. There doesn't seem to be a lot of attention, if any, that I can find. Like, for example, what he was referring to is there's no coercion in religion. Well, that is actually not speaking to the non-believer.
Mm-hmm.
That's speaking to that's more of a counter to the suggestion that apostasy should be met with the punishment of death.
Exactly.
Which a lot of Muslims say it is, depending on your reading of the Quran. Although, like I'm just pointing out, there are counter arguments that are easily made against that. No, you're not. If in the no compulsion to religion passage, it's actually in the 2nd chapter of the Quran, and that speaks to really is more addressing a backslidden Muslim, somebody whose faith is weak, and it's not somebody who's now renounced their
somebody who's on the questioning line.
yeah, and well enough, the Quran says to leave that fellow alone. At least in this passage, it says.
Well, on the topic of the Quran, I was actually one of my older radio show co-hosts said that the Quran is a completely non-violent religious text. So far in your reading of the Quran, do you believe that?
No, I don't.
So ha!
But again, it all comes down to interpretation, and this is a problem with any religious script, and nobody will follow my rule that states the importance of a message should be accompanied by an equal or greater level of clarity when it comes to a message from a deity.
Exactly.
Again, it gets back to, would you pick an illiterate guy and write in Arabic if you really had an important message for humanity?
Exactly.
No. Some kind of hieroglyphics would have been better.
Even easier, yeah.
Some pictures that 5-year-olds could understand would have.
Just show somebody stabbing somebody else and put a big X through that. Murder is bad.
But see, the problem, here's an example, is a counter to, say, suicide is stating that you shall not destroy oneself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that can be interpreted, are we talking
Emotionally,
metaphorically or spiritually or
mentally,
emotionally? I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean, to me, don't kill yourself, or it should say, don't take your own life, if that's what it really meant. So do not destroy yourself is still, I mean, it's just a couple of words long, that sentence, and I can already come up with 2 or 3 different interpretations for that.
in the most literal way, suicide bombers, and yet that's apparently a way to get to your 70 virgins, so...
Well, see, they can interpret that, don't destroy yourself, don't do anything that would prevent you from being a better Muslim, in their opinion, or leading you to become separated from God, Allah, longer than you have to be in the afterlife. And that's another topic that we can get on. See, there's so many different places to
I think
go.
we're getting off topic of our original thing. We wanted to talk...
Oh, we still got lots of time. There's no rush.
Any other questions that I had? How was the meeting yesterday?
Oh, well, that's not till next week.
Right, I already asked you that.
Yeah. What you're referring to, there is a conference, the Ahmadiyyan National Conference.
Which I have to get off. I can do that.
Maybe you'd be able to come with me.
Yeah. Hopefully. It's... You know what? I just remembered I have a friend coming down and I can't.
Well, I'm gonna be there as much as I know. I'm gonna be there.
And so we'll keep you. We'll keep you guys updated next Sunday. We'll let you know how that goes. What we learned.
Yeah, we're gonna. I'll come back and I'll just tell you what I saw. So there are some concerns that I have. I mean, Nazir's first time here. I want him to really get out what he's all about. Certainly, if somebody just tuned in, they'd be. Well, I actually did have a number of people this week. It's like, are you all right? Like, how do you sit
with that? Yeah. I tried counting all the things I had something to say about.
The blood just running down your chin from biting your tongue.
Yeah.
But that's Nazir will get his
eventually.
The tough questions, or not the tough questions, but the questions. They're legitimate questions. Like from all the functions I've been, I do have one question: is where are the women?
Exactly.
Do you guys reproduce by dividing? Because I have not seen any Ahmadi women. And I know that the thing that I'm going to on Saturday does specify that there is an entrance just for women.
And why do you think that is?
Because they're different than men.
Because they're different from that.
That's
the
all you gotta need to know.
The look I got from that is just because they're different.
Yeah, boys have a penis, and they don't like those mixing in public. Actually, to the point of there is rules that.
That's something actually I always wanted to ask a Muslim is why the necessity to cover up or treat women not necessarily just differently, but so differently than men.
Well, it's certainly not. That's an ongoing theme through religion that Islam has picked up from the extremely paternal
there you go.
aspect of the previous two that they're adding the sequel to. Extremely biased against women.
Because I mean, like, I get it. We treat women differently these days. They dress, act, and talk differently than us, due to the culture and media, whatever whatever argument you want to say. But
I like that though. That's not something I
know it's not necessarily.
Let's cover it up.
Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, we have our reasons to treat women differently, but we don't treat them that differently. And I think that's the question I'd like to ask.
Women treat themselves differently here.
Yeah, but it's not too much differently. Like
no, but it comes to the point where it doesn't matter how we treat them. Women over that we're familiar with.
Oh yeah.
Don't let us define them, right?
And kudos to them to a certain point.
Well, you wouldn't want to have it any other way.
Well, if we've lost control of our women long ago, and I'm good with that.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at some of the old ads, you can go online and look at the old vintage ads from the 40s and 50s. You think, how did more husbands not get stabbed?
Exactly. So that's the thing. Like, I want to know why they're treated so differently. So that's a question I need to ask Nazir next time he comes on here.
And the one thing that he'll probably say is you have to differentiate between a religion and a culture. Which does have some merit.
But
only goes so far.
Exactly.
You get to. It is legitimate to say that no, that actually is not part of the Islamic religion. For example, the mutilation of female genitalia,
which is
very common. But
disgusting.
He'll be quick to point out that that's not an Islamic religion teaching.
It's a culture.
It's a culture teaching. It just happens to be Islamic culture.
Exactly.
It's sort of like, I know I can't find the word Christmas tree in the Bible, but it's Christian.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a cultural thing, but it's a Christian culture.
Well, isn't the tree actually from a pagan religion?
Yeah, it was stolen like
most of
the
Christmas.
Yeah.
And Easter and all that. I remember actually in grade 2, I remember specifically remember it was my first time through grade 2 because I went through it twice. We were learning about Easter, and the Christian answer to why we have Easter eggs is that this family, after they came back from seeing Jesus being resurrected or some crazy thing like that, after they came out, they went to the barn. And the mother had left some chocolate on the mantle or something. I don't know, but they saw a bunny running away, and that's where the Easter bunny came from. Is that because they came back from the thing and they saw this chocolate or something like that? Because the mother was celebrating the resurrection of Jesus, so she put candy up for the kids.
Yet rabbits have been part of that festival long before Jesus has. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but. Yeah, so there's a difference that a Muslim, and there is a legitimate point to it that it's not taught in the Quran or the Hadith, the Sunnah, the 3 different places where they get their information. But,
yeah, exactly.
So it'll be interesting, and like I said, we have to have them back to talk about things like their view on hell.
Oh yes.
So it's a little different than Christian hell. You can actually get out of Muslim hell. It takes forever, and I don't know how.
So it's not an eternal punishment for a finite crime. That's good.
No,
so it's one step better than hell.
It may only be 3 billion years instead of
that's
forever.
So there's hope.
Yeah, there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
So we're about halfway through. So let's get back onto the actual topic for today: logical fallacies.
Yeah, well, I did have an interview with Christine she's in Calgary. She's doing her doctorate out there.
On what?
And she explains that. I'm gonna get it backwards. She even messed it up when she was trying to explain what faculty she was part of. But
it's one of those.
You can listen. I had just woken up when I did this interview, and I will tell you my ever since that comet.
Which one?
The one that.
Oh, the one that blew through.
I don't know if it's I'm sure it's a coincidence, and I'm sure it's a logical fallacy I'm committing. But my computer equipment has been screwed since that.
Maybe it's like the radiation and the magnetic fields that come and they creates the spirits in your house that messes with your stuff.
Yeah. No, I'm gonna go with the comet thing.
All right.
Spirits. Okay, so let's play. This is about 20 minutes, but I will touch base.
We'll talk
on
about
this
it
after, because it is important. It has nothing to do. It's not specifically just for philosophy students and stuff, or people who like to talk about religion or politics. This is stuff you use in everyday life,
or at least should use in everyday.
You should be aware of some of the basics.
All right, so this is logical fallacies for dummies, and I hope you guys learn a thing or two.
So today we are joined by Christine, who's in Calgary today. How are you doing, Christine?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Before we begin, can you maybe just give me a little bio about yourself? Tell me a little bit about what you're doing in Calgary right now.
Yeah, I am a PhD candidate in the Faculty of Communication and Culture and the Department of Communication and Culture, Faculty of Arts at the University of Calgary. And I am studying the intelligent design movement from a rhetorical perspective, basically. And I am also on the Legion of Reason podcast. I'm pretty active here at CFI in Calgary. I'm on the board of directors for Atheist Alliance International. And that's me.
Oh, very good. So today we wanted to talk about logical fallacies. And for those of us who do some debating or some heavy discussion, maybe a little bit more familiar with what a logical fallacy is. But just in day-to-day life, like I'm going to vote as soon as I'm done talking. A little basic understanding of what a logical fallacy is, I think, would be helpful in everyday life for pretty much.
Well, essentially, a logical fallacy is a fault in reasoning, right? And you can identify these through looking at the rhetorical structure of a claim or possibly reframing it into such a fashion that you can assess that claim and have a look and see exactly what's being said, and then you can determine whether the argument rests on logical or faulty premises.
Right.
So I should probably start by. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to let you continue. We do have a delay in Toronto area, so I'm going to let you just go ahead and talk without me interrupting. I'll do my best. That's what we're looking for, is what a logical fallacy is, and maybe some examples of the more common ones that we run into in a daily basis.
Yeah, there's actually a really good website where the common ones are outlined, and it's called yourlogicalfallacyis.com, I think it is. I'll send you links anyway. And for a really good start in terms of looking at fallacious arguments, I recommend this book. And much of what we know about rhetoric began, of course, with Aristotle. Here's another really good book that I recommend. I'll send you the citations to that too. So basically, I'll start by telling you what rhetoric is, and essentially that's the art of persuasion. Skepticism, of course, is about how we assess claims. We take in evidence and we take a position of, I guess, agnosticism, so to speak, on claims until we're satisfied that there's good evidence, right? So like I said, some of the common logical fallacies, ad hominem, an attack against the person that has nothing to do with their argument, appeals to authority. Now, sometimes those can actually be legitimate because, of course, as an academic, when I write a paper or something like that, I'm appealing to other people's work to justify my case, right? But if you appeal, say, to divine authority, that's not, that's going to be a fallacy. You can't make those claims and expect those types of things to be unidentified as fallacies. Let's put it that way. I'm just going to grab my notes here. I'm more interested these days in some of the ones I'm seeing in the here and now that Aristotle kind of predicted, right? So one of them is called, sorry, you can edit that.
Not a problem.
Okay, here's one that is really interesting, and that's the development of a manufacturersy. And a manufacturersy is, I'm citing Lee, I'm going to slaughter her name, Lee Cacciarelli, I'm going to try. And she defines it as a manufactured controversy that is motivated by profit or extreme ideology to intentionally create public confusion about an issue that is not in dispute. So there's sort of three ways that you can go about creating these manufactories. First of all, you appeal to common values like fairness and free speech and objectivity and that sort of thing, right? And this helps to frame this non-issue around one of two sides that deserves fair and balanced treatment, right? And of course, it's not an issue in say, the scientific community. The second way to do this is to exploit the public's understanding of what a scientific consensus is. So basically, most scientists just don't have the time to refute these claims because they're busy doing science. So I'm really grateful to the scientists that are out there and standing up against some of the nonsense that's going on, right? And finally, another way they exploit the public's understanding of science or lack of understanding of science is to basically attack particular problematics within established research programs and frame them out as though they're indicative that the whole research program is in crisis, right? So you see this in climate change denialism, you see it in creationist rhetoric. Chris Mooney wrote a book about it called about the Republican War on Science, this book is called. And he talks about, I'm sorry, I've got a phone call from here. Can you edit this out too?
No, you're good.
Sorry, I should have silent that. So yeah, he talks about the links between tobacco use and adverse health effects and how those claims were deployed, and these are essentially the same strategies, right? The second one that I find really interesting is Godwin's law, and this is actually identified by Mike Godwin in 1994, and he applied it specifically to the online context, and he referred to it as a meme. But what it is basically the idea that an argument will collapse into accusations of Nazism and calling people Hitler and stuff like that, right? So we see that one a lot, right? I'm sure we've all seen plenty of that, right? Another one I want to talk about, this is kind of an interesting one, and it's called the shill tactic. And basically what it is to accuse the person you're arguing with of supporting, big corporation interests, right? And quite often this is, of course, a very plausible identifier, but sometimes it can be used in kind of mean ways. And I'll send you a link where a reporter basically attacks this 14-year-old girl who's speaking out against, she wants food labeling for GMO products now, those kinds of arguments aside. It was just sort of a really, I thought, kind of a mean way to use that approach, accusing this little girl who's just trying to, be a good activist, and she's 14, and this reporter's, basically saying, oh, you're selling out to big corporations.
Right.
So those are a few that are, on your these days that, Aristotle couldn't have predicted these sorts of things, right?
So it sounds like, in staying within the realm of how science is affected by these bad arguments, it almost seems like certain groups have the idea that if they cast doubt upon the scientific theory, that their supernatural theory is somehow gains strength.
Yeah, yeah, that's sort of the classic appeal to authority. It's like there's quite a few arguments those people use, specifically the creationists and intelligent design people, and one of them, well, again, creating a manufacturer versus attacking, I don't know, say the fossil record, saying there's not enough evidence, and these sorts of things, right? So these are very common tactics. And, you know, I talked about the appeal to authority before, and that can also be sort of an appeal to incredulity. I don't know, so God must have done it. That's kind of like, you know, the argument from complexity, the watchmaker argument. That sort of thing.
Yeah. Just because I can't understand it, it must be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty common. So let's try some Latin. Post hoc ergo propter hoc.
Yes, I'll have to look that one up, actually. That one applies to, if I'm not mistaken, does that one apply to syllogistic claims?
Because this occurred before that, this caused that.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. That's sort of like a, yeah. If A, then
those,
B, B, therefore A kind of structure.
Yeah, yeah. I find, just staying along with science, I find that very common when I see people trying to self-diagnose when they have an illness or some kind of affliction, and the inability to, and you'll see this, well, I ate that because I ate at this restaurant. I must have gotten sick from that restaurant because I got sick after I was at that restaurant. That kind of thinking, that I would think that science tries to get some of that bad, unsupported thinking out of the equation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you see a lot of that in sort of the pseudoscience realm too, with the, I don't know, homeopathic claims and stuff like that, right? That's a pretty common tactic in that realm, faulty causation.
Well, I see them kind of muddying their message by using scientific terms, but in such a word salad that I think the average person just says, oh, well, that sounds impressive. I don't know what you said, so must be science.
Yeah. Yeah, my background is in advertising and marketing and PR and stuff like that, right? And I had quite an interesting example of an ad that just tosses out so much, you know, pseudoscientific nonsense. And of course, it's for a cosmetic product, and they talk about, you know, we've derived this from, I don't know, outer space rocks, and you know, it's the latest technology, and it's quite incredible, right?
Is that the Stardust?
Yeah, Stardust, and you know, this kind of thing, and it's supposed to make you look younger and all this. But what did it say? Refill your wrinkles, and like, I think wrinkles are just wrinkles. They don't become unfilled. They develop over, you know, like even this kind of like very subtle plays of language. Although I have to say this one wasn't terribly sophisticated. It was quite a piece of work, right?
Yeah. Well, and I noticed that the advertisers are really clinging and hanging on to this word natural.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at things like organic foods, and what exactly are the regulations that constitute, say, an organic product? Well, I don't think they're really what people think they are. I think a lot of times that's just a marketing term to, you know, sell something more effectively.
Well, yeah, if you consider that, you know, arsenic and lightning bolts are natural too, but I don't really want to get close to either one of those.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, there we go. That's naturalistic fallacy. If it's natural, it must be better. Well, no. Thank goodness for modern science and medicine and all those things, those unnatural interventions that make our lives so much better, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I want to clarify and say unnatural. What I mean, of course, there's the natural world and supernatural world, right? I don't believe in the supernatural world. Everything we have has been, derived from nature, obviously. How we've manufactured and produced those things, there's still nature, right? So.
Yeah. And if we regulate it or not, that
Exactly.
maybe soon become all natural. May become a euphemism for unregulated.
Yeah, that could very well be the case.
That's great. So before we go, could you answer one question? You were saying that an appeal to the divine as a way to appeal to authority isn't valid. But if you had a God that was all-knowing, how come appealing to him on anything would not be a valid route to take?
Can you rephrase that? I'm not sure what you mean. So if God actually existed, would it still not be a logical fallacy to invoke?
Well, I see people
authority?
use this all the time. Yeah, they appeal to the divine. I would think that the response to that would be something along the lines of, you haven't actually demonstrated some of the parts in your assertion that you're using that haven't been demonstrated to be true, as, for example, the existence of an actual God. But I just notice it's funny how often appeal to religion quickly shuts off some people's desire to normally keep ahead with argument. But if it's a religious appeal, then people tend to back off.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, to my mind, I just reject supernatural claims outright. And like you say, even if you want to invoke that, then there is and he's not made himself evidentially known to us that those claims would even be meaningful in that case either. The Christian God of the Bible, that kind of thing, right? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, and it sounds like, to sum up the the awareness of what these logical fallacies are, it sounds like it's just trying to level the playing field and making people who are making claims actually back them up, as well as giving a blueprint for how to actually attack somebody else's position in a logical manner.
Well, I guess if I were in that situation, I would probably invoke the Socratic method and essentially keep questioning them until, provisionally agree with their claims, and then keep interrogating until the argument falls apart, right? That's one way to evoke that kind of response. And something that, this may be just sort of it is a personal observation, but I don't have a problem when I'm arguing with somebody of faith to provisionally take into my mind, okay, for the sake of argument, let's accept that there is a God and go from there, like you say, right? But people seem on the other side unwilling to say, okay, let's say for the sake of our argument, there is not a God, right?
Right.
And I actually have a friend, and he was, quite taken by atheism. He was a strong Christian. He decided, because he's a very intelligent person and experimental with his mind and that kind of thing, I'm going to try to be an atheist for a week and see what it's like. And now he's one, right? Yeah. So yeah, which is interesting, right? So people that do that thought experiment quite often, will seek out that information, and that can be sort of a roadway in, I guess, right?
Well, it sounds like, and this is my experience, has been that critical thinking, if you practice it, it becomes habit forming. And once you start to be able to recognize on your own the logical fallacy in an argument, then life in a lot of aspects, a lot of parts of your lives gets a little bit easier, whether it's negotiating in real estate or negotiating with a spouse over what movie you're going to go see.
Yeah.
Being able to actually, and I guess that would probably lead to another question I would have: what's the difference between an argument and a debate?
Well, essentially an argument is a set of premises leading to a conclusion, right? And so an argument is something you would use in a debate. You would, argue your case in a debate. But of course, the debate is a different. It pertains to the context and being in real time, and having to address responses that are given to you right now. So how you prepare for a debate versus an argument that could take place, say, among peer-reviewed papers or between friends over wine or whatever. But you just gave a really interesting example, and that's what movie are we going to watch tonight? Well, that can be framed as an argument. Like, of course, that's just we understand it as a conversation among spouses. But say your wife wants to watch, I don't know, a romantic comedy, and you want to watch We're Being Blown Up, right? Like, you're going to persuade one another. You're essentially going to argue why you should watch why you should watch one another's movies, right? And compromise. So if you took those claims, well, honey, I'd really like to watch this tonight. Okay, here's your argument. I want to watch this movie because X, right? Conclusion, we should watch this movie tonight, not yours, right? So even though it's not an argument, you can still construct it in that kind of format to interrogate, whether your partner has good reason to watch that movie or not. I suggest not attacking spouses with logical fallacies. Right? I said that to my class. I'm like, don't try this at home, right?
Yeah, leave it to the professionals.
The divorced woman, don't use logic on your spouse. Just yell back. It'll go better, right?
Yeah. So I'll be sure to get some links from you, and we'll put them up on the information for this video. And I thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best in your studies in Calgary.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Take care, Christine.
Thanks, you too.
All right, thank you very much,
Christine.
It was quite helpful. I'm sure we should probably get her on another time, answer a couple of questions that weren't answered completely. Or
we could certainly go into, more in depth.
Yeah.
In a lot of these areas. This is a very huge area of study.
I mean, there's an entire course in it, like a 3-year course on fallacies and stuff like that in university. So definitely something that I think people should definitely go into and take a look at and study themselves. It's pretty simple. You can probably find a lot of the good stuff on Wikipedia.
Well, I'll she sent me some links, so I'm going to put those in the body of the video.
Okay.
I think there's links to the Socratic method.
I love that.
Syllogisms, the syllogistics.
Define it.
Syllogism. It's little rules. I don't know. There's like 100 of these things or something.
Give me an example.
Well, it's how you. I believe it's deductive reasoning rules.
Yes.
So if just how you do exercises, like if Socrates, all men have beards.
Okay.
Socrates has a beard, therefore Socrates is a man.
Yeah.
Like different little rules of how you set variables up like that to determine whether they're true, and you can have very long involved formulas where you're using these. And you try to balance them, and if you can't balance them, then you determine that this is not true, or this is a logical fallacy,
Exactly.
or logically invalid
I know you're talking
statement.
about that, yeah. But
So we'll just kind of touch on some examples of some very basic, just to recap that.
okay, before we go, let's start with the most annoying fallacy, the most used and annoying fallacy.
There's kind of two that go together,
Oh,
but the argument from ignorance.
Yes, the whole there is no God. Well, you can't prove that, or you have no proof that there isn't a God. So therefore, there is a God. That's an example, probably the most widely used example of an appeal to ignorance.
Yeah, and you have to be careful, because what that is an attempt to
change the burden.
Even if the person is not even conscious that they're doing that, that is, you can actually see that that's a shift of the burden of proof, right? It's up to, you're the one making the claim.
Exactly.
You have to back it up, not me.
So if you're the one saying there is a God, you have to prove that there is a God. Most sincere and I guess professional atheists will never make the claim that there is no God because we cannot prove that.
Yeah, it depends, and you have to be careful if we're going to use religion as an example. Are you using God big G or God little g?
Exactly.
Because my level of atheism differs on the very specific. That's why I say the very first thing is, okay, what do you define God? What do you mean by God?
And I'll
something we don't know, or very specifically the God that's worshipped by the Southern Baptists. That's what I mean. What are you talking? There's a whole range in between too. So, I mean, we'll talk about the difference between Gnostic and agnostic.
Yeah,
right?
I've never heard the word Gnostic before.
Well, that's the opposite of you know what an agnostic.
Yeah, somebody who's just ignorant
Well,
or
that's-
apathetic towards the idea of religion.
And I don't really view agnostic. I don't see that as a noun. That's an adjective, right? Somebody says I'm an agnostic. Okay, an agnostic about what?
Exactly.
You haven't. I've asked you what kind of fruit you like. You told me ripe. You haven't told me what fruit. You've just told me how you like it.
Exactly.
You didn't really answer
So
my question.
agnostic almost literally means apathetic then.
No, well, it means that you are declaring that you don't have enough information to make a decision yet. The kind of the jury's still out. I'm on the
fair enough,
fence,
yeah.
kind of thing. And people like to use that kind of as an in between. Well, I'm not comfortable with the word atheist, and I don't want to walk around giving the impression that I'm saying there are no gods at all. So I steer clear from that word, agnostic. Oh, that's a little bit more comfy, you know. That's a little bit more acceptable.
This way, the theist will actually talk to me.
So if you're an agnostic, you're still an atheist. You could just as easily say I'm an atheist. You might want to say I'm what's traditionally kind of known as a hard atheist or a Gnostic atheist, somebody with a knowledge to make the claim there are no gods. If I don't have enough knowledge, I'm an agnostic atheist with regards to, say, the God that has not yet been described yet. I would be a Gnostic atheist with regards to the big three monolithic religions. I actually say that based on my logic that I use internally with my formulas that I use, this God actually can't exist, primarily because of the Epicurean riddle that's never been answered in a couple of thousand years that theologists have had enough time to solve this and have not. Whereas to a more generalized claim, I'm far more open-minded than the believer because I am open to the possibility of a God that's not been described yet. So that's one. Now, another one that you will find very easy, and it's not, again, not just about religion or anything, but it's very easy for me to mess with your argument if I give it back to you in a dishonest way, if I mischaracterize your position.
So an example?
Atheists, I guess sticking with the religious example, atheists, you guys don't believe in God because you're angry at him. Now let's talk about your anger. Now, wait a minute, that isn't my position.
Exactly.
You've made my position into something that's easy to knock down or to light on fire. That's why we call it a straw man. Again, it's a dishonest repackaging of your opponent's position in a package that's easy to knock over.
Scott and I were just talking about it at the Debate Faith page that I'm sure we've mentioned a couple times on this show, that we have both recently just left. And one of the things that this annoys me even more than fallacies is being accused of a fallacy you're not making. And all the time we'd have theists accusing us of a straw man argument because we continually ask them to meet the burden of the proof of their first claim. They'll go on, they'll make their claim, and we'll ask them about it, and they'll make a bunch of other claims, and then we'll keep asking them about those other claims, still addressing them every now and then about their original claim, and they accuse us of a straw man.
Well, that sounds a lot like another fallacy which is called moving the goalposts.
Mm-hmm.
They'll ask a question and I answered it, and I answered it properly, and they say, yeah, but, and they actually have now gone back and changed their original question a little bit. So it makes it look like I haven't answered the question.
That's the problem with the debate forum online, is that when they say yeah, but, you're like, so you said yeah.
Well,
which means you agree.
This is one of the advantages of why I do like to debate in writing,
Mm-hmm.
because I do have recorded. I have exactly what you did say, and I can quote you. You did say this. This was your original question. Where you can't always do that vocally. So that's another example is if I stop actually addressing your position and I start to attack you.
Oh God, that's
I
ad
might,
hominems.
bring up the fact that yeah, but you didn't do this, and you didn't finish high school, and you start naming things. Yeah, but you.
It's like a reverse appeal to authority. Eh? It's
Why
like
would
that,
I-
like
Poisoning the well.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Poisoning the well.
That's okay. Anybody that has ever been in prison couldn't possibly know this, and I go on and talk about it and ask you your opinion, knowing full well you have been in prison. I've kind of, it's like a preemptive strike against everybody who is in this category that I'm criticizing.
Exactly. Which is yeah.
There is a few more I just wanted to mention quickly. We're running out of time, but yeah, appeal to probability. Okay, here's a really good example, and try this with your friends. These thought experiments that we a lot of times get wrong. Now I can flip a quarter,
Mm-hmm.
and I flipped it 3 times, and every time it's come up heads.
And
What are the odds that it's going to come up tails my next flip?
That's 25%, right? No, it's still 50.
The coin does not remember the last 3 flips. It
Exactly.
doesn't know that, oh geez, we got to even this out. We're due for a heads.
Mm-hmm.
The coin. But you want to see this in real life action? Go to a casino.
Oh yeah.
Go to a bingo parlor and watch all the logical fallacies played out in front of you with troll dolls and
Exactly. It's like the 6 to 1. Here's a better example that will actually require you to think. Recently, the Tim Hortons roll up the rim, right? Everybody knows that. Most people know that the odds of winning a roll up the rim are 6 to 1. You buy 6 coffees, you win. You lose on 5. Odds are you're supposed to win that 1, right? No, the odds are still 6 cups to 1. After that, even though you've already opened up 5, it's still 6 to 1 for each cup, not 6 cups. Did that come out right? I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't had a coffee.
You know what I
in a
mean.
couple hours, so.
You know what I mean, though, right? Yeah. The odds of 6 cups to 1 does not apply. Does not mean that you buy 6 cups
Well, it's
and you will
each
win.
individual, but now you would expect if you were doing random chance, you would expect one of those
Exactly.
to turn up a winner. I think there's just a couple more. Gish Gallop is a modern. Dwayne. It's named after Dwayne Gish, who is a creationist, a part of the intelligent design
Oh wow.
group, and his method would be to have his mouth spew out so much BS, so much crap would come out of his mouth that his butthole would get jealous. It was that thick. Where you're putting out so many, and these aren't, these are all arguments that could be refuted, but he shot out so many, also sometimes called the shotgun approach, where you've just blasted out so much information at once that your opponent couldn't possibly take all the time required to answer every point that you made.
Unless you're like me, in which case, if you're actually debating with somebody, it's because you have no life at the time, and you just have the time to do that.
Well, yeah, if you want to take 10 hours to refute what the crap that he spewed out in 10 minutes, it would take that long. In a live debate or a formal debate, you don't have time, so it looks like you can't answer his points when you simply don't have time. You can't remember everything he said. You know, even if you could remember everything he said, you don't have time to address everything. So that's another example.
So there's some.
You'll see this in go and see the movie What the Bleep Do We Know.
Mm-hmm.
It does a couple of things. One is it throws out so much information, and not just regular information, but information that is absolutely laced with scientific terms or scientific sounding jargon.
I love
And
those.
it overwhelms you with so much information at the end of the day where you said, well, that was impressive. That's got to be true.
Yeah.
No, it was a load of crap. But I think you even mentioned it before, you know, that if I take a teaspoon of crap, or if I take a whole dump truck and keep piling thousands of teaspoons of crap in a pile, it's still a pile of crap.
Exactly. Doesn't matter how big it is.
Yeah, which could be another example, the appeal to popularity.
Love that, eh?
Yeah. Well, because I'm actually having one of these conversations right now with actually a Muslim online of
Why'd you point at me?
the popularity, because I'm talking to you. The popularity of a position has nothing to do with the validity of it. So we're gonna have to continue this because there's a.
We literally just ran out of time. So thank you. We'll continue this logical fallacy sometime in the future.
It'll come up a lot.
More in depth and stuff like that. So for the Father's Day, we gonna play. This is dedicated to all the fathers out there. We got a Simon and Garfunkel song.
Yeah, I picked out this specific song. Number one, Simon and Garfunkel reminds me of my parents in general. I remember the 8-track tape was the first memory of listening to music.
Oh yeah.
Simon and Garfunkel, and this particular song reminds me of my dad quite a bit. So
this is dedicated to all dads out there. Simon Garfunkel. Central Park, I guess, is the title.
Central Park is the name of the album this is on. One of the best live albums in music history.
Oh yeah. So enjoy. Happy Father's Day to everybody, and we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy. Play. This is the ad you're talking about, yeah?
Yeah.
There we go. What do people mean by you just Garfunkel me?
Didn't Garfunkel screw over Simon and went on a solo career and was more successful?
No, Paul Simon is far more successful than Garfunkel.
Garfunkel's career ended after they broke up. I don't know what they're talking. You'd have to talk to the idiot who said it.